Good morning and welcome. Thank you for joining us or tuning into this video. I'm joined today by Sarah Parks. Welcome, Sarah. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell people watching a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Hi, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be here and come into your community. So I'm Sarah Parks and I am a parenting and legacy coach. So I help families really to use gentle, conscious parenting approaches to support their family dynamics, really, so that to help improve relationships, for parents to be parenting in the way that they want to, but actually have those skills working. So I often work with people who are quite passionate about using gentle approaches, who want to, the legacy part, often people want to parent in a different way to how they were parented themselves, and want to break cycles that you can see, when you become a parent, you notice those things that didn't work for you as a child, and you want to do things differently, but can sometimes find yourself saying the things that your parents said and you don't want to do it that way, you want to do it differently. But actually getting that working for yourself can be challenging, especially when, despite there being so much change over the last 30 years, right? 40 years, 50 years, 60 years, however old you are, that actually the fundamental structure of our society in a lot of ways is still the same. So it can feel like a struggle breaking out of the structure, which, let's face it, is pretty much a patriarchal structure of our society, and breaking out of these old ways of parenting can feel a challenge, even with all the information there is out there, So getting that working for yourself can be challenging. And of course, today we're talking about a time of life when we're going into a new stage of our lives, as women, and that brings up a whole lot of stuff, right, with it as well. And often at a time when our children are going through a massive change as well. So lots of you in here will probably have teenagers who are going through big changes as well. So we're meeting at each other at quite a potentially volatile time on both sides. It's like, who designed it that way? But it is the case. And, I've got a 14-year-old daughter. So, and I've seen massive shifts in the last 2 years with her. And that can bring a lot up for us, when they're going through all these hormonal changes and we're going through lots of hormonal changes.
Yeah, totally. And I think the legacy piece actually is really interesting on that part, because I don't know about you, but I don't remember my mum going through menopause. It wasn't something that we talked about or was generally talked about. So it's almost like this is a new area of navigation, that whereas, the earlier years I might have thought, okay, my mum did this or did that, or maybe I do want to do that, or maybe I don't want to do that. But with the menopause, it's very different. I don't remember that being a part of my teenage years.
But it's interesting, isn't it? Because all of that, like menopause wasn't talked about. No. Also, the transition that we're going through, that teenagers go through in starting periods and all of that, and becoming sexually active beings, like all of that quite tricky stuff to navigate that my parents didn't talk much about either. So none of it was kind of open. So absolutely. Doing, it's interesting that you highlighting that legacy piece, because it is like having a different relationship with those things, being more open with those things, being conscious about those things, bringing them into awareness, and kind of transforming the shame and the taboo-ness of it all, actually.
Absolutely. And I think that's part of the sort of the difficulty of being a perimenopausal woman with young children or teenagers, being able to understand their issues and needs, and also hoping that they understand a little bit about ours. And I think maybe that's where it's changed as well, is that there wasn't that real requirement when I feel like when I was a teenager, it didn't really, there's no real thought of what your parents were going through. And I think that shifted a little bit. I think there's a little bit more awareness amongst teenagers. But on that note, I've had an email from somebody, and I thought it would be a good way of basing this conversation around something a bit specific, because I think women in menopause with teenage girls or teenage boys, but maybe more particularly teenage girls because of the extreme hormones, although that does apply to both.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, just thinking as I talk, thinking as I go. But this email has given a bit of food for thought, and I thought we could base our conversations around this, and perhaps you could help this lady with a few strategies. So I won't name her, and I'll skim out anything of personal detail. But she said, "I'm a perimenopausal woman, and my daughter started her periods 2 years ago. It can be really stressful at times, as I expected my daughter would have been more sympathetic to my symptoms, but she doesn't get it. My husband is lovely, but he cannot understand it either." So that's the sort of basis of it. She says, "Life at home is very stressful with a teenager. I have low energy, some chronic health concerns, which are slightly separate. I'm struggling with fatigue and anxiety. And I don't have any particular questions, but I wanted to share this privately because I thought about this whole topic and feel we need more discussion on it." So on that note, we don't have to be particularly specific, but could you share with us any strategies for either the dealing with the teenagers or dealing with the partners, any kind of generic strategies for making menopause within the home it's slightly easier to navigate for everybody?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that comes up, and the kind of foundation of the work that I do, is actually around emotions, around the feelings that come up, right? And around listening to those and welcoming, like, all feelings are welcome. That's the kind of environment that I strive for in my family, but also support my clients to have this openness around allowing the feelings to be expressed and moved through, instead of suppressing them, pushing them down. And that's and it makes such a massive difference. But it starts with us being open. It's like what we were saying, we didn't know our parents, our mums were going through menopause because they didn't talk about what was going on. So being open, and something that a lot of mums, I think, find really hard. So there's the being open about how you're feeling, but also asking for what you need, like prioritizing your needs at the times that you need to do that. Because I think a lot of people feel really burnt out and really really struggle because of not taking the time that you need, to fill your cup up, to and that has to be a priority. And I think most women probably go from a place of putting everybody first, including the dog and the cat, right, before your needs, right? And I think when you come to being perimenopausal or menopausal, like, it's a time of our life where our system goes, you can't keep doing that. You can't keep putting everybody first and putting me last, because I need more than that. And often that's on top of years of that. So that's one of the first things I would say, is to make sure that you're taking time to fill up your cup, and also to prioritize your needs for yourself and communicate that with your family. And part of that is having firm, loving boundaries, right? Which is part of parenting. It's being really clear about what you're available for and what you're not available for.
And what might that look like in reality, the firm boundaries,
so that could be around cooperation around the house, particularly if you're somebody who's doing everything for everybody. it suits them for you to do everything.
Yeah.
And they might not like it, but it's a time when, you know, having those boundaries and being clear for yourself, let's say around, I don't know, emptying the dishwasher. Let's say it's your child's responsibility to empty the dishwasher, but they just don't do it, and then you end up doing it and resenting it, and you know, being really clear about that boundary, holding that boundary, and then them doing that, and not just, oh well, I'll just do it and feel put upon. Do you know what I mean?
Not being a martyr about it. That makes sense.
So have a think, is there anywhere in your family life where you're doing that?
I like
you
that
cross
idea.
where you say yes when you mean no, where you cross that boundary for yourself, and therefore they know that they can cross that boundary with you as well.
I like that idea, because I think very often when we talk about self-care and putting ourselves first, and in reality you think, well, where do I start? How does that happen? And then you think, okay, well, it could start in the home with, like you say, sharing some of the chores, just taking a little bit off of your plate. Allows you, rather than adding in, feeling like you're adding in more with the self-care and adding in exercise and adding in diet management or whatever it may be, by feeling like you're taking something away, actually makes it emotionally feel like that's more realistic to be you're helping yourself.
Absolutely, you're creating that space. And so with that, you know, if it's, you know, if somebody's stepping a boundary, you know, describing how you feel or describing the problem. So, you know, owning and communicating your feelings is really, really important. And being willing for the other members of your family to do that as well. Okay.
That's an interesting perspective.
And it helps to, one of the things I help parents to do a lot is have collaborative conversations as well. So when it comes to cooperation around the home, you know, our children and our partners, actually, those other children, can also, when you have a collaborative conversation, which is a conversation where you're kind of looking at what solutions you can find to something that isn't working, right? And then you talk about ideas for that without judgment, right? And then you agree on what strategies or solutions that you're going to move forward with. So you're creating an agreement, which means if your child has said, well, I'll empty the dishwasher, for instance, coming back to that dishwasher example, when you've created this agreement together, then you have something to hold them accountable to, because they said it and it was their idea. So when they're not doing it, it's less about you nagging them and more about holding them accountable to what they said they would do. Does that make sense? It's a completely different energy and nuance to it.
Yes, no, it does make sense. I guess it's that idea of almost of like a family rota, isn't it? It's a funny, I had a conversation with my mum the other day. My two girls have got we have an ensuite bathroom, and so they share a bathroom. I said to my mum, honestly, I clean it and within a day it's disgusting, you know, makeup everywhere, hair, you know, they're just gross. And my mum said, well, you know, really that's down to them, you know, it's their bathroom.
Why are you doing it?
And I'm just thinking, oh my God, I'm gonna have to clean it every day. But actually it's that passing over and so almost someone giving you permission to say, you know what, actually you can do that, you can take that, and then that's, like you say, it's the agreement between you.
And it's having that agreement. And also I've been working with some clients who have children in their 20s, right? They didn't do this stuff. How old are your children?
13 and 10.
Okay, they didn't do this stuff when they were 13 and 10. And the consequences of not doing it now, so like whatever age your kids are, start doing it now. The consequences is, how are they going to be going to university? How are they going to operate? How are they going to live if they don't know how to clean a bathroom, right? So you know, the bigger picture is them becoming independent, you know, self-reliant, confident, but also nice to be around and live with, because you don't want to pass that on to other people, right? That they're going to partners and future partners and people they're going to be sharing houses with, you know, if that stuff isn't sorted out now, like they don't know how to operate in the world.
You know, that makes sense.
So it's kind of starting with that now around the cooperation and what have you. Now this lady also, you know, she talks about people in the household not understanding where she's coming from.
And don't get it.
They don't get it. And I suppose partly what I've been talking about is, you know, we actually train people how to treat us. You know, we've got to go first. So often we can think they don't get me, they're not responding in the way I want them to, or they're not treating me in the way that I want them to. Are you treating yourself in the way that you want to be treated? Because when we're not, we don't have these loving boundaries towards ourselves. And often we've trained our family to treat us in a certain way. So, I mean, I know that's you probably
that's an interesting one,
that, but
again, it's the boundaries, isn't it? And communicating
boundaries.
And being the martyr, you feel like, I'll just get it done, I'll do it quicker, it's less stress for everybody, it's less shouting,
it's easier, like all these
actually,
beliefs that we have.
You're not being an advocate for yourself either.
No.
Okay.
So I think,
and how about from a male perspective? So if you're a husband and your wife is going through this, I actually went to an event last night where I was talking to a couple of men whose wives are at this stage, and they described it as, we have been through it, as in they themselves have been through it. And to begin with, I thought they were joking, talking about the menopause, but they were actually describing it as a collaborative process. We have been through it. We have read the magazines and, you know, opened the window at night and, you know, done all the things that kind of help their partner. But how do you think you get to that point where you can have a partner that really understands it, and not only understands it, but advocates on your behalf?
Well, I mean, like I said before, I think you have to ask for what you want. You have to firstly know what you want. You have to know that you want that. That you want a partner who cares about that, who cares about you, who cares about what you're going through, and is willing to talk about that. And so these, you know, collaborative conversations I was talking about, you know, having a conversation with your partner, you know, to communicate what you want, what you need, because they don't know how to support us. And we, you know, we can be in that place where we expect them to be able to read our minds. They feel lost with it as well, you know, but we're not asking for what we want. We're not asking for what we need. So it's, again, it starts with us speaking up and, you know, I mean, one of the things that becomes to the fore as well, I do work around understanding different personalities, like what we need to feel cared for, what we need to feel loved. And that work is really important because you get to understand what your needs are and communicate them, and you get to understand other people's needs, because when people have a very different personality to yours, right? Let's imagine you're a woman who's very caring and nurturing and giving and puts people first and what have you. And let's say your partner is, let's imagine that they're not as touchy-feely as you. They don't talk about their emotions as much. And, you know, if you do try and express what's going on, they just want to try and fix it or solve the problem, right? They just want to So maybe they're not necessarily kind of listening in the way that you need, you know.
Sarah, are you still there?
Yes, I am still here, but can you hear me? You've frozen. You still there? Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me okay? Yeah, I'm not sure what's happening. Might have to edit this. Hopefully the internet will come back and I'll be able to hear you and you'll be able to hear me again. Hello, hello, hello. Oh. Pause recording. Okay.
Hello, we're back. We had a little communication issue there, so I'm back here with Sarah. Sarah, I think where this cut off was at the point where you were explaining, you were giving an example about the
So it was the different ways of feeling loved, basically, you know.
Yeah.
And so when we have different ways of feeling loved, and I feel like this really keys into the question from that lady, because when we have different communication styles, if I'm telling you that I love you all the time, right, that I don't actually ever help around the house, which is your main way of feeling loved, is having people help you, right, and do things like acts of service for you. If that's how you feel loved, no amount of me saying I love you has you feel loved, right?
Yeah.
So that can be a big thing. And I sense that lady's question, part of what keys into that, them not getting me, I'd be interested to know. It might be also that your partner and your daughter have similar communication styles and you feel like they don't get you. Maybe that is a dynamic in your family. It can be absolutely a dynamic.
I'm thinking about it, actually. It's understanding there. Yeah, that's very true.
And this happens so much. So if you're in that position where you feel like, you know, you don't get each other, which is heightened within teenage as well, because how they want to communicate changes. And something that came up for me the other day, I was laughing about with somebody, it's just like, just pick up the phone and have a conversation. They don't do that. Teenagers these days do not want to talk on the phone, right? Yeah, we might still want to communicate in that way. We might want to speak to them. It's easier to sort something out. They're happier texting. So there's a mismatch in how we want to communicate. So meeting them where they're at is really powerful. So another question for you is, how can you meet them where they're at? In terms of their communication. So I hope that's helpful for somebody, because you might be there going, this drives me mad. Actually,
it's almost understanding them before you expect them to understand you.
Yes. Yeah. And that's this foundational skill of listening, because like listening, it seems like it's just with your ears, but it's actually the foundational skill that I kind of take people through is coming from a place of, well, listening so that your young person feels understood. They feel like you get them. Yeah. And you get where they're coming from, and you get them, and that you're listening, and that you're on their side.
And that you're trying to get them.
You're trying to get them, even if you don't. It's like you have this willingness. Like,
I do think that's a teenagers, isn't it? They just assume that you're intentionally trying to not understand them. But when
or make their life hard, do you know?
So
they need to know that we're on their side, you know.
And then they
affirm we're on their side. And that has to come, all of that. And I know, because we talked, this conversation is a bit backwards, that reason why that's a foundational skill is because that has to come before those firm loving boundaries. You put those firm loving boundaries in without that, and they push against it. You tell them what to do, all of that stuff, right? You have to have that foundation in place.
Yes. Okay. And I suppose that rings true with the husband as well, doesn't it? Or the partner.
Totally.
And how you can help me, not that I want you to help me, but it's what is within your capabilities, because people help in different ways, don't they?
Yeah. And start with something really manageable and really easy that will have you feel supported and ticks a box for what you want. So that's part of the collaboration, right? That's part of having a collaborative conversation, is you're meeting so that you're getting your needs met. They're getting their needs met in a way, because they're having a much happier partner.
Yeah.
And it's kind of working together.
Yeah. Oh, that's really useful. I think really useful. One of the guys said last night was that he gets his wife gets the menopause magazine delivered every month, and he said, I have a little flick through, and I thought, mean the world to me. That would be a small gesture. It's a bit of understanding, but it's an taking an interest, isn't it? It's caring. Feels like that's really cool. Thank you, Sarah. I think we've got some strong tips to go away with. And again, it's a bit like the way I work with women with health. It's never that complicated, is it? But it's just figuring out the order, and figuring out that actually it doesn't need to be that complicated, and conversations and some dialogue can go, and being really open and honest about what you need to help you.
It's always simple, not always easy.
No,
always simple. It's always simple.
Yeah.
The simplest and sometimes the smallest of changes have a massive impact. So it doesn't have to be big. It can be small tweaks that have a big impact.
I think we often think that the big things are the way forwards, but there's that lovely analogy I like, which is the plane taking off from New York to LA, and it's 1 or 2 degrees off course, and it ends up thousands of miles in the wrong place. So 1 or 2 small changes, small tweaks can make huge impacts. That's often the way, but I think we feel things are bigger sometimes, and actually small steps open up the ability for other small steps, which creates massive change. So that's really useful. Thank you, Sarah. So tell our viewers how people can work with you, what other ways they can work with you, and where they can find you.
Okay, so I'll start with where you can find me, which is I'm on Facebook as Sarah Parks. So you can find me on there. You can find me on LinkedIn as Sarah Parks as well.
Right.
So you can find me in those places, and on Instagram. I can't remember what my Instagram handle is. I can send links over to you as well, can't I? That you can send out.
Yeah, great.
And there's different ways of working with me. I do breakthrough sessions, like one-off breakthrough sessions. They're like £97, where we kind of look at what's going on, and I help you create a plan for making some changes.
Right.
And then you can go off and do those. So I do those kind of breakthrough sessions. So those are one-off sessions, or people can work with me one-to-one over a longer period of time, or in a group within my conscious parenting mastermind as well. So those are the kind of main ways of working with me. Those kind of 3 ways.
Brilliant, thank you.
And also, just to let you know, I have an offer that that I'm happy to extend here, which is where I do a bundle, actually, which is where people get a one-to-one session, and you get my 4 steps to help your child manage their big emotions course as well, and for £97. So normally it would be £97 for each of those things. So you're saving £97 basically.
Brilliant.
So you get that core foundational course. So, I was talking earlier about the those foundations of listening and empathy for your child, your young person, your partner, and yourself. You have that, and you get lifetime access to that. So it's actually a really great bundle. So
that is a great bundle. Okay, and I will share that with everybody for you. Thank you, Sarah. It's been really nice to see you. Thank you so much.
Great to speak to you too.
just stop